Let's go talk to my buddy from AccuScore.com, Zach Rosenfield. What's going on, Zach?
What's going on? You guys all hot and bothered over Brady Quinn over there?
No, we're not. Last I checked, they're 0-2 against us. I think what he did was I am bothered by him because he put my outside linebacker out for a couple of weeks. So that does bother me.
For what it's worth, he also took out Josh Cribbs.
Yeah, but we did that with a legal hit, so it's okay.
On a play that Brady Quinn called, that was his call.
So. Yes.
He's doing great.
Hey, listen, looking at the NFL games this week, I am surprised. I'm looking at Vegas, and maybe you can make sense of this to your computer, why Indianapolis is favored by 1, an undefeated team versus a team that's lost, I think, 4 out of the last 6.
Yeah.
Well, you also have to remember that, Vegas puts a number that wants to be attractive to both sides. Baltimore is very capable of winning that game, and they're probably trying to balance their books. I mean, anything, they can get either way. They probably want to make the pick a little bit more attractive to Baltimore. We have the Colts winning by an average of 2.5 points in that game, but largely just because of the secondary and a loss to your outside linebacker and Peyton Manning's efficiency. I mean, a guy who puts up those kind of numbers is always going to be a big star in our simulation engine, especially when that team hasn't lost yet. But, Vegas is a very smart entity. They're very smart. But, yeah, that's probably why it is. It's closer to that number because it's a player's play.
So you have Indy by 2.5 points, but how often do you have Indy by 2.5 points? I mean, how many times in your simulation do you have Indy winning this game?
In this game, we have Indianapolis winning 60% of the 10,000. So that's 6,000 of the 10,000. So that's, it's not a huge margin. I mean, when you think about 60% versus 40% is really not a huge margin. I mean, remember, you're dealing with a Ravens defense that historically is very good and very stout. And on the statistics ledger, they put up a shutout last week. And while they did not necessarily have a lot of offensive points of production, this is a team that's turned the corner now that is known for scoring points and does put points on the board. Very strong running game in Ray Rice. Very good quarterback in Joe Flacco. So it's not as much of a landslide as it is as you might think it is, or even if you look at the way this game went down last year.
Oh, I don't think it's a landslide at all. Here was Zach Rosenfield from AccuScore.com. Zach, again, KZ and I have not been able to cover yet. San Diego takes on the Denver Broncos at Denver. Denver just destroyed San Diego at Qualcomm Stadium earlier this year, but that was a different Denver team and a different San Diego team. They have reversed roles. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm not a big guy who believes in a momentum. I always don't like the idea that, this team is going to be really fired up and motivated. I think that's rah-rah stuff for high school. A lot depends on if Kyle Orton plays, and I believe, he is going to play. Even if Orton's going to play, we still think the Broncos are a better team by roughly 4.5 points in this game. We don't have a line on it simply because I don't think Vegas has a line on it, but let me try to tell you what the overall simulations are really quick. I don't even think I have that information available. All I have is a raw score of roughly 26 to 21.5 in favor of San Diego. San Diego is just, on paper, a much better team. I mean, they've always been known as like the team with so much talent in the NFL. It's a matter of just executing. Remember, the Broncos played great throughout the first 6 games of the year, but where they really get punished is in their running game. Noshan Moreno is a fumbler. You can't have fumbling in this game. I mean, it's too possessions are too valuable. And if you start to take a look at position by position, the Chargers are vastly superior to what Denver is rolling out in just about every phase of the game, especially at the running game.
And then one more game, which I have a lot of interest in just because it's seemingly two teams that, kind of going in the same direction, but they're getting there at different times. But you got Houston entertaining Tennessee. Tennessee's played really well since Vince Young got put in there. Houston kind of, everybody wants to believe in them, but at the same time, everybody's a little hesitant to believe in them because every time you start to, they put up a stinker. And
I think if you know football, this is going to be a very good Monday Night Football game.
I can't wait for this game. Yeah. I think it's going to be a tremendous Monday night game. What's the computer telling us here?
Well, I think also Houston suffers in brand name recognition. I mean, they've just never, they've never been a top tier team ever since they came in with expansion. They've never been synonymous with winning or being, being on the upper echelon of any division. I think that's held against them more than, the clunkers. Every team in the NFL throws out clunkers. I mean, it happens, but it's the teams that make, if it's a clunker or if that's the norm, that's really the distinguishing factor. We have Houston winning this game by an average of 2.5 points. They're winning 57.7% of the simulations. Look, everybody knows that Vince Young is doing great right now, but there's a big difference between Vince Young coming in during, the garbage time of the season after an 0-6 start and getting things, loose and winning versus, him being the man overall. The thing that concerns us most of all about Vince Young, it was the yards throwing to Chris Johnson last week. I mean, while it's great that Chris Johnson had 100 and 100, that offense is not designed around getting Chris Johnson 100 yards. The running back is not the primary weapon. This isn't the Philadelphia Eagles offense. I mean, even with that said, looking at our numbers this week, we only project Chris Johnson for 30 yards out of the backfield. So, you have to take a look at why is Vince Young and why is that passing game racking up so many yards to a running back. And it's largely because Vince Young isn't the type of guy to throw to a spot. He's not the quintessential NFL quarterback. He might be the new breed, the next generation. But quarterback in the NFL, as we know it, is not synonymous with the way Vince Young plays football. And eventually, maybe not this year, and it's still going to be a good story with Tennessee, but he's not going to be that sort of guy.
I hear that, but last I checked, Vince Young as a quarterback starter is 21-11. That's 10 games over 500. And I think when you look at a guy who threw 17 touchdowns in his last full season of starting in 17 interceptions versus 9 touchdowns, the fact to me, I don't know, Casey, maybe I'm looking at this wrong, the fact that he is now throwing at Chris Johnson tells me that maybe he's starting to do something that he didn't do before, and that's take what the defense gives him. That's what I look at that as.
Not only that, I mean, Chris Johnson's the most dynamic player in the NFL right now. So get the ball in his hands. I mean, you play better when the ball is in your playmaker's hands. So not only that he's maturing, but, taking what they give you, but he's smart now too.
Also, the last game I wanted to talk about, I don't really know how the game is going to end up, the Sunday Night Football game. What is the computer telling us about Philadelphia at Chicago? Because Philadelphia has been probably the most inconsistent team in the NFC.
Well, these are two teams that are very much, very much on the ropes. This is a huge swing game for both teams. And, we were kind of out in front of this story at the beginning of the year that Jay Cutler was not an upgrade in Chicago. I mean, there was brand name recognition in him coming out there, but the guy throws interceptions. And if you look back at last year at the Hockey League game with Denver and San Diego, the possession before all that stuff went down, he threw an interception to San Diego, and then he fumbled the ball in the red zone. And we started to take a look at his numbers, and the guy likes to turn over the ball, and he has 17 interceptions this year. He's good for another 1.5 to 2 this weekend, and that, again, is the reason why Philadelphia goes on the road and is a 2.5-point favorite in our simulations to beat the Bears. I know the line is 3, but, home field advantage is so big in the NFL, and a guy like Jay Cutler, with all his attributes and the PR that he gets, is for being a top quarterback and the excuses made for him when he throws the interceptions, they should not be only winning 42.5% of simulations at home against a team like